Ghana believes that education is the most important thing that we need to provide to our children so that we can get to a place where we truly become a transformed nation, socially and economically. The nation is spending tremendous resources on education. What that means is that we need to protect our investment by making sure that schools are safe havens and they are places where children can learn.
I wasn't naive. I thought, well, there must be, there is violence in schools. There must be, teachers maybe slapping kids, or there might be sort of fights in the playground. But what I saw when we started to do proper prevalence studies, the things that I hadn't expected is the levels of violence that we're talking about.
UNICEF did an analysis of statistics from different countries to try and get a kind of sense of the global trends, and they found about a third of children experienced bullying on a very regular basis. Corporal punishment was higher. There was something like 60% of children had experienced physical punishment, and sexual violence, I think around 10% of girls had experienced sexual violence. But those are kind of global figures, and that masks huge variations between different countries and locations.
We're starting to really see an exciting body of knowledge coming together to help us understand what works to address the problem. And along with that, we're seeing new methods being developed, new ways of capturing impact.
In Uganda, we're finding that in the district where we were working, more than 90% of children had experienced physical violence from a teacher. And this is in the context of a ban on corporal punishment that had been in effect their entire lives. So that, that should be 0% of students reporting that.
There's also research that's shown that violence has then an effect on school attendance, dropout, and on school performance, how well children are doing in various test scores.
The Good School Toolkit is a whole school approach, which means it engages the entire school in thinking about what kind of relationships the teachers and students are creating with each other, as well as all the other stakeholders, including parents, are creating with the school. So Good School Toolkit is an open source resource, so it's on our website. Anyone can download it. Anyone can reach out to us for any assistance that they need.
At the end of our trial, 49% of schools which were in the control arm, students reported experiencing physical violence from school staff in the past week. Whereas in the schools that had received the Good Schools Toolkit, only about 31% of students reported that same form of violence. So there was quite a big difference between the intervention and control schools. So we showed through that research that the Good School Toolkit was quite successful in reducing that form of violence. So we were really quite excited about that result.
The number one thing that we have learned is that standalone interventions, such as just responding to, say, corporal punishment, have very limited impact. If we want sustained outcomes, then we do have to have whole school approaches that have multiple activities built into them, including the issue of children's participation, their agency.
It really helps to create incremental changes in each group and then social support across groups for the changes that we see. So I think all of those things really come together and create a new norm around violence in the schools.
Schools aren't always the safe havens that we hope that they will be, and in fact we know that 246 million children are affected by violence. And this is, a huge challenge for everybody.
I think the thing that we have to be aware of when we're thinking about how to tackle violence is just the interconnectedness between the different forms of violence that we care about as DFID. So, for example, that we see that children abused in childhood are more likely to go on in later life to either perpetrate violence or to experience violence. We also see a clustering of vulnerabilities between different contexts. So talking about responses to violence, we need to be thinking about what can we do in the community, what can we do in homes, what can we do in the schools.
We look forward to joining the campaign. We are committed to that impact. The Poverty Reduction Strategy Paper 4, we are, as a government, we are trying to adopt, has something to do about measures that will go about combating the violence itself.
Individuals who are vulnerable and need to be protected, they are our children. And therefore, I'm very gladdened to hear of DFID's commitment and support.